actually an out of focus camera, folks. So
Yeah.
excuse me, the computer's going into the repair shop next week.
All good. Welcome everybody. March 2024 and International Women's Day. So thanks for being here. This is our weekly or monthly, not weekly yet, Don, don't worry. Session where we go over all the data. Where did the money go? In this case, February, and what's the year looking like? So thanks for being here. And Don, I'm shipping it over to you.
Thank you so much, David, and hello to everyone. Again, apologies for the out of focus camera, but that's it for this session anyways. So February was our first burst of activity this year. Went up from 3 billion in January to 4.8 billion, 90 companies to 145 companies. So significant increase. And we're now tracking 8 billion year to date for funding. Where did the money go? Well, you may remember last month there was an outsized amount of investment into clean tech that fell back this month, and we saw more. It is very common into biotech and med devices. Artificial intelligence continues to draw lots of bucks. And that's pure artificial intelligence. And then artificial intelligence as applied in a variety of enterprise packages down in the software arena pulls its more than its share. But the largest part of that 4.8 billion was done in mega deals. There were 16 mega deals, and I'm sorry, for first time listeners, a mega deal is 100 million or more that goes out in a single funding to a single company. So we call those mega deals, and there were a significant amount, 2.9 billion of the 4.8 went out in mega deals. A couple of these were just outsized. Figure AI, and these folks are putting together, making a humanoid robot, 675 million for their Series B. They're close to going into production and have cut deals with some manufacturing sites. But going around, you can see there's a much bigger spread on the mega deals than there was last month. The one mega deal that went out to a female founder was to BioAge. BioAge Labs, Kristen Fortney. We'll look a little bit more at what they do later, but 170 million Series D. And when we get into the funding for women, these later stage fundings make such a difference in what percentage of total funding is going towards women. So we can see 2 mega deals went into artificial intelligence, 1 in clean tech, a couple into manufacturing, a couple into biotech, a little bit of security. So very widely spread around in February. Now, out of that 4.8 billion, precisely 275 million went into women-led companies. 170 of that, as I mentioned, went to BioAge. So we're down to about 5.6% of the total funding went to women in February. And you can sort of track where we are this last 12 months, the prior last, let me try again. We're tracking from July to June for 22 to 23 and now 23 to 24. And while we had a couple of spurts in 22, you can see we've been down along the basically 5 to 6, more or less. So we'll see where we end up for the rest of the year. I guess we could put a positive spin on this. Overall, PitchBook reported that 2023, all female teams took away 2% of total VC funding. It hasn't changed much for 16 some years. The greatest amount has been 2.8. And unfortunately, last year, it actually dropped to 2. Let's see. Oh, there's 5 questions in chat. David, feel free to stop me on a question if it's appropriate.
Yeah, for sure.
So women-led companies, that 275 million went out to 13 different companies. These are the largest of the fundings. And we'll look at a little bit more on what's some of them do as we get into breakdown in different sectors. For the most part, pardon me, for the most part, these were early stage fundings, an early stage Series A or a seed. 2 of these women have done multiple fundings, Astrid at Camu Energy and Kristen at BioAge. The remaining women, we will look at each of those. A couple of companies have really interesting products that are worth talking about when we get a little further on. So other companies of interest, these are companies that out of 145 companies that we looked at stood out and just caught your attention, and I wanted to share them with you. Lilac Solutions is interesting because they're doing lithium extraction. Lithium being a very critical component of mobile phones, other battery devices. And they're actually extracting it from brine, brine resources, and doing it in such a way that there is a very low environmental impact, it's low cost, ultra efficient. They're getting 145 million from private equity, which is a vote of confidence. Private equity does not invest in the more risky VC type areas. Sway Innovation, we actually looked at these folks 3-4 months ago, and they're back again with a $5 million seed extension. And they actually launched their product this month. And for those of you that look for packaging of any type, they now have a compostable replacement for plastic packaging. It's all seaweed based and decomposes quickly. And let's see. The other area that I wanted to mention, Watershed Technology. This is a carbon emission tracking company. It's one of many of them. These folks got a mega deal this month, 100 million Series C. But it's of note because Wednesday, the SEC passed final regulations on public companies having to report on their carbon emissions. So there's no doubt that that'll be litigated, go around, but this is going to immediately provide an opportunity for the startups out there that are already tracking carbon emissions. And I'm sure we'll see some new ones enter. The 2 biotech companies I wanted to, no, back. There we go. The 2 biotech companies I wanted to mention, one, and both of these are fairly well along. Freenome has a suite of blood tests. They're 254 million. Now, series unknown simply because they have gone through CDE. They didn't announce what this funding was, but they have in excess of 1.3 billion in funding for what they're doing. Neurona Therapeutics, also interesting. They're actually creating what I guess you'd think of as a shot of neural cells to deal with a variety of chronic neurological conditions. And they've gotten a pretty good amount of funding to follow that up as well. This month, interestingly enough, we started seeing Web3 fundings again. I've included one here, Hyperline, building a shared Web3 data lakehouse. But we saw a total of 7 different Web3 fundings. So that pipeline is starting to open up again. For those of you involved in Web3, and I know a number of you are, that was very interesting to see. If you're involved with a nonprofit, you may want to bring Overflow to their attention. Overflow has actually produced a single one-button solution that enables donors to give nonprofits not just cash, but stock, crypto, non-cash assets, just about just about any form of financial asset that you want to contribute, they handle through their one button. So it's a good solution for nonprofits to take a look at. I brought it to the attention of the nonprofit I'm on the board of. And the last one here that I want to point out, Scribe. This is a really interesting application of a variety of AI competencies. Essentially, you record any process, and they record it through their application, and their application then auto-generates a step-by-step guide, the screenshots, the text, and for bringing people up to speed, training, just the basic question and answer that goes on every day in both small and large companies. This does a fantastic job on. I've tried it myself, and I'm actually going to be using it this weekend. Okay. Yes, AI fundings. So AI fundings, we had, let's see, how many total? Total of 20 of them. These ones sort of stood out. And again, we're in the artificial intelligence sector. We're tracking what is not a vertical application, not a horizontal application, but the pure AI that is put together, OpenAI, Anthropic, and around them, and of course there's a lot of others, but around them, the tools that go towards both creating the data, training the data, creating the LLMs, the different kinds of LLMs. We're now getting into, and one of the fundings here is for guardrails, trying to eliminate uncertainties, which will be interesting to see how they do that. And now going into using AI internally in programming, data platform, application development. Datology is focused totally on just find the best data to train your LLM on. They don't do LLMs, they don't do the applications, it's purely data. The Recogni, this is going towards autonomous platforms. But again, this is AI-based inference. Taking that focus, or that portion of the AI arena, and just turning total focus on implementing autonomous platforms. The last one worth mentioning here is really where the next battlefront, if you will, for compute resources. We talked last time about the chip wars, you know, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, all coming out with chips, or both coming out with chips to try and pick up some of the market from NVIDIA. Looks like NVIDIA is going to pretty much own the market through most of this year. But because there aren't enough chips out there, because the compute resources are just hard to come by, there's a new group of startups out there taking a little bit different tack. Some of them are data centers. Some are, as inference AI is, literally GPUs, a collection of GPUs and compute resource that you can rent for a certain amount of time. And you see, of course, the big three, AWS, Microsoft with Azure, and Google, all three providing compute resources to startups, to enterprise. And they're going to get competition now from a new group that the VCs are funding, which are AI data centers, to provide those same compute resources, presumably with a different edge on each one. Okay, we're up to 9 questions. I hope there's nothing there that we should be tackling. So this information all comes from the research that Bob and I do for Pulse of the Valley, our weekday newsletter on fundings, on executive moves in the Valley, on investors, and what the individual executives at the investors are doing. The Pulse of the Valley, as I said, comes out 5 days a week. Go back. And there's a free version and there's a paid version.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yep. Thank you, David, and I'll turn it back over to you now.
No, that was good. A lot happening. First, I'd love just to see if anybody has any questions, comments. Feel free to raise your hand or just start talking. Holly, go for it.
I was just going to say, Dawn, I think it was Jane who had the question around cybersecurity in your initial overall investment in the first slide, I think it was, and where that fits in the world. I think it was Jane.
June did. I'm looking at the
I'm sorry,
question
June.
now.
Sorry, my apologies.
It comes under security. It doesn't have its separate sector. It's part of security.
It is part of the security. Okay.
Yeah, so that green pie piece there is that, and I have to say these days most of what's coming in under security is cybersecurity related in some way.
Right. And I think, I mean, amazing what's happening with chips. And like Grok is interesting as far as like a GPU in the cloud. We're just gonna see so many things come up. And have we seen Don, just a real, I know with some of the software tools, it's, I don't know how much money people are gonna be investing in them. They can be featured out so quickly, many of these things, right? If Anthropic, and 2 of the Anthropic founders, by the way, are speaking at the conference that Kiana's running with our partners at Bloomberg. So I'm excited to see, and they just have so many other amazing speakers.
Yeah, a lot of
Have
money
you
is
seen some resistance? Yeah.
a lot of money is going towards tools, David.
Right. But is it more chip focused and hardware focused? I mean, we're just seeing, or is it still just if it's AI,
I'd have to say more money is going towards the software than it's going towards the hardware.
Okay.
But the hardware is also a longer, upturn.
Yeah.
The companies that got funded to do competitive chips for AI, competitive to NVIDIA, or accelerator chips that will take away a little bit of NVIDIA's edge, they won't come to market until the end of this year. Software, they turn around inside of whether it's a few months or a year, but the timeline is just much less.
Yeah. And I think certainly the jump in blockchain and Web3 is, I think, just the applications with AI. We'll see more and more of that as they want to track, where the digital assets are going, right?
Absolutely.
The
Yeah, as a
thing
matter of
is,
fact, there were a couple of
Sorry.
those fundings in the last 2 days, David. I'll have those for next month, but I'll send you one of those.
Oh, I love it. Yes, June, go for it. We get
sorry, I
good.
kept mistaking the end of paragraph there. The thing I had heard from startups, I think like Recogni, when I interviewed there was that they were feeling that NVIDIA's chip and trying to satisfy everybody was a bigger and high power than special needs chips. And that's why they were thinking that their startup company would do very, very well. So it's been interesting. I interviewed with 2 different companies doing chips that are specialized.
Yeah, compute resources is going to be the big story, I think, for the next 6 months. And companies finding whether it's chips, data center, moving to smaller LLMs like with Together AI and open source LLMs. We're going to see more of that.
Totally. Bob, what any comments or from where you're
No, I'm
sitting?
just thinking out loud about the semiconductor industry because I happen to own Applied Materials stock in AMD, and they've just gone up like 150% over the last year. So I'm just thinking that there must be such a need for chips in the AI space. Otherwise, this wouldn't be happening. I know that AMD is doing something similar to competing with NVIDIA. So I just think it's exploding on the chip side as well. The other comment I have about all this explosion in AI, if you're an investor, think about so many companies getting started, and you're trying to filter through all these to find the ones that are really going to make a big difference. So it must be it's going to be really tough for all these the startups who are jumping the space. It's sort of a herding environment where they all jump in at once. So many companies and so many people thinking they've reinvented the wheel, but investors are going to have to be very careful because what they get into is going to be just such a crowded area.
Well, along the line, Bob, of AMD and chips,
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone started seeing the advertising, but HP and Dell, all the computer companies are now starting to put out AI computers, which are using special chips so that when you're using different forms of AI as a user, not as a developer, but as a user, you'll do better, faster work.
Yeah, totally. Exciting stuff. Anyone else like to have any questions before we go into breakout rooms?
Well, I'll say one thing, David, just speaking, since I spend all my time with startups, it's a very tough time to be a startup right now because there's a lack of investor enthusiasm, starting with the VCs. And I'm involved with an organization that's helping micro VCs raise capital. Of course, they're competing with the big boys. I mean, for example, Andreessen Horowitz is raising a $6 billion fund, their 12th fund. So how would you like to be a small micro VC with a $20 million fund trying to compete against CalPERS to get money to go to these guys? So I think the more established people are probably going to get the lion's share of the money, and everyone else is going to be scrambling around to get their share of the activity, and it's just going to be tough. Don, got something? Okay.
Yeah, just a related comment, but not to that, Bob.
But I was just thinking out loud about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, we do have a question from the audience. Freddie, welcome.
Greetings, everybody. Hello. It's good to meet David. Thank you for inviting me to this. This is an incredible forum. And Don, what incredible information you're sharing. And Bob, what you're saying about kind of the crazy situation of everyone jumping in right now, this new startup environment that we're in. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm also a musician. And I've done a lot of presentations to various women's groups, the American Business Women's Association. I was also the keynote speaker for WeBank a few years ago in Florida. And so I do a lot of work with women's businesses, and which is what brought me to today's forum. And but now that you're mentioning some of the AI things, I wanted, with all the expertise on this call, I thought I'd put this out, and maybe specifically to both Don and Bob. And that is, I have a lot of people now approaching me about doing an AI avatar version of Freddie Ravel. of me, because I used to play piano with Carlos Santana and Earth, Wind and Fire and many, many artists like that. And people are interested, various companies, AI companies, that want to film me playing and speaking so that they can put it in 40 different languages and run with it. And I'm hesitant for good, which I think for good reason. And I'd love to get the feedback, maybe from Bob or Don or anyone on the call, on what do you do when you're an artist and a presenter? Your talent is the IP. And when they capture you, what you're doing and how you present, and they model you, how do I know that they're not going to just run with that? and I put my own self out of work, if you know what I'm saying, because I love what I do.
So Freddie, we've got some people in Silicon Valley that are all about AI. That's all they do. Okay. So if you want to contact me or Don, I'll be more than happy to introduce you to Murray, for example. There are people that are just doing nothing but AI, and they have a lot of opinions, probably like to know you and may have some ideas for you. Sure. Happy to do that.
Yeah. And
Thank you, Bob.
And Freddie, we can talk about this too, right? Because I think it's blockchain, making sure you want to get it out there, but you also want to track it. But we do happen to have an IP attorney with us, and I'd love to hear his thoughts on it.
So very briefly, Freddie, one way is to treat yourself as a mixture of patent, trademark, copyright, trade secret, IP that you're about to license. And if you treat it as a thing you were going to license, you would want to have a royalty stream and a royalty base and a percentage. And given that someone could go look up at least all of Santana's or the Who's public recordings and make an AI without asking anybody, subject to copyright, but they wouldn't need permission from the person, you may want to just talk, the two buyers make a sale, talk to 2 or 3 different groups about doing it, strike the best deal you can, because otherwise you may find there's an avatar that you aren't getting paid for, which both are bad. That one's worse. Anyway.
Thank you, David.
Yeah,
I might add to David's point that it's lifeintune.com. Life in Tune is the name of my brand, and we did get a trademark on it, and we do have a class 41 for international goods and services, which took 5 years to do, but we got it. So I just wanted to say that we do have some positioning to some extent, David. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I love that.
If I may add,
yes,
there will be a conference by Digital Data Design Institute in Harvard regarding this matter, and the speakers will be Grammy Award winning, I think, Derek Ali. They are coming to Harvard on May 7, and I will put the link here because there is going to be a virtual that is free. So there's going to be an in-person and then a virtual version of it for free. So let me just get the link and post it on the chat here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And look, let's jump into breakout rooms so we can all make new connections and talk about this, and then we'll come back in 10 minutes.
Thank you.